Excellent. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our remote member meetup and Ally of the Month call. Our community is global, so this session is being recorded for those who can't join us live. Starting this month, we are combining our remote member meetup and our Ally of the Month session. As our community membership head, Megan will be soon going on maternity leave. So this is the call where you can find out the member updates ongoing forward. Feel free to raise your hand and ask a question towards the end of the call, or you can also welcome to drop your question in the chat window anytime. So we have a packed agenda today, and let's get started. I'm Diwali, and I lead the allyship pillar at Women in Streaming Media. This session is such a great opportunity for us to explore how representation is shaping the future of our industry on a global scale and how allyship is redefining what leadership look like. It's a powerful example how inclusive leaders are amplifying women's voices, open doors for others, and creating lasting impact. For those who are new to WSM Network, I'll give the quickly brief about who we are and what we do. Women in Streaming Media is a global organization focused on increasing diversity and giving more visibility to women leaders in the streaming media industry. Our education pillar is providing resources and opportunities for the members, and I'm happy to share that our season two of our podcast, season two, is live. You can listen it on Spotify, or you can also find it on our YouTube channel. Last month, we launched seventh cohort of our mentorship program. It's a award-winning mentorship program, and it's a part of our membership and completely free for our members. Our speaking engagement team is constantly giving a platform to women in streaming media members to share their knowledge and contribute to the industry. In 2024, we launched the allyship pillar to celebrate the leaders who actively support women in streaming media and to grow a strong network of advocates across the industry. We believe allyship is about consistent, intentional efforts. When leaders show it through what they do, it naturally comes a part of the company culture. And our monthly Ally of the Month calls are all about creating awareness and celebrating the leaders who are making a real difference. In building the inclusive teams, we are thrilled to see more leaders stepping up to lead by example. And today's session is really special. When I reached out to Tom for this call, he said he wanted to bring Michelle along with him for this conversation, which is such a great example of allyship in action. So, a quick introduction about our guest today. Tom Schultz is VP of Apps Engineering at Pluto TV and Paramount Streaming Tech, where he builds and leads high performing tech teams. He's passionate about working with diverse, talented engineers and believes in listening first, collaboration, and inclusivity. With him, we have Michelle Helms. She is a certified PHP, deep experience leading in large scale media and tech initiatives. She's known for aligning product engineering and design teams to deliver the complex projects. At Paramount, she's been key in driving platform unification and operational efficiency. Outside of the work, Michelle is a mentor, a strong advocate for women in tech, and a creative spirit who loves reading, crafting, and spending time outdoors. So, welcome, Tom and Michelle. Over to you. We would love to hear your allyship journey.
Thank you, Dipali. Really appreciate you and the community. It's very humbling to be here and frankly uncomfortable for me without having someone who I believe is amazing in what she does, Michelle. And I just want to say, thank you for inviting me to be able to speak today.
Yeah.
Or- yeah,
Sorry, Tom.
go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction, and I'm so grateful to be here. Also, I think when Tom first told me about this sort of conversation we are going to have, I could feel his humility a little bit. He was a little bit uncomfortable, and I think that's what makes him such a good ally. Also, is that he doesn't see what he does as an ally as like an additional effort, right? He has really, in my experience at Paramount, paved the way for me to be successful. And so I'm really grateful to be able to talk to you guys about our experience together, my experience as Tom helping me out on my journey at Paramount. And so, yeah, I don't know, Tom, if you want to start off with something or how we
Sure. I
want to
guess
start this.
DePauli gave us kind of a framework of things,
Yeah.
and I kind of thought about these things quite a bit. So one of the things, excuse me, one of the things that she kind of asked us was what I guess this would be directed to myself. What first inspired you to embrace allyship, and how has your understanding of it grown over time? So I probably thought about that quite a lot. It just so happens that I'm in Florida visiting my mother, and so that's something that's really forefront in my mind. And I feel my mother and my upbringing was a big part of of that, like kind of unbeknownst to me till now, that she really kind of embedded the concept of respect and treating everyone the same and equally, and that you're to be very humble in everything you do. So that hasn't always been the case in my life, but carrying fast forward to more recent times, I kind of look at, again, these things start in the home. And my wife, Emily, Emily has been a very big impact on my life, as well as my two daughters, Tori and Lily, which again, I just so happen to be going on a grad school trip with her this next week. So I'm excited about that. Um, and then my younger daughter, Lily, also, who graduates from high school. And then I have three stepdaughters, Ella, who's a senior, and then Ava and Addie, who are twins. So when I kind of think about a lot of this, I feel that maybe I've learned some things from my personal life that um, hopefully are manifesting in a positive way in the workforce. And a lot of that to me is around listening. And I've kind of picked up through mistake, frankly, a lot, which I still do, the concept of mansplaining. And that's definitely a real thing. And it's something that I'm really trying to myself, like, listen 4 to 5 times, no matter who it is, no matter what background or whatever the situation is, 4 or 5 times more than I speak, because I heard a quote before, which I stuck with me, which is, "I never learned anything while I'm talking." Um,
Mm.
and I think it's just a lot of an awareness that I think that has really kind of just coalesced for me in the last few years, and specifically working at Paramount. We have people like Michelle, also Sarah, who's here. I'm really happy to see. And Michelle's the things that I've seen from Michelle so many times are, as we work on this large project of converging these two huge brands of Paramount Plus and Pluto together on the technical side, that involves a lot of, frankly, conflict a lot of the times. And a lot of things I've seen from Michelle are her ability to always show up with up-to-date information, organized, forward-facing, excuse me, I'm sorry, and always looking to validate and make sure that a very large group of people with a lot of, frankly, agendas are validated with their viewpoints and able to contribute. And that's just, I think, a beautiful thing. So I would say, like, over definitely the past year, those are things like I noticed with Michelle, and wanted to, like, uh, I hope proactively reach out and say, hey, you're doing what you're doing is great. If because these things are hard for anyone in any situation, like not to step on toes, not to say the wrong thing. And she handles these things with such grace and acumen and precision. Um, so it's just one of those things. So at the same time, is like how this is how authentic Michelle is. Like, we have tough meetings and tough things that go along, and there's a lot of times bruised egos, let's face it. So, I kind of reached out one time to Michelle and said, hey, is it me or is not everyone really listening? And her response, which I can't really say completely, but was like, yeah, they don't seem to really to care. But in real time, so what I learned from that was in real time, Michelle's able to professionally and consistently and with focus guide conversations, navigate things that drives the business forward, but she's also simultaneously taking in these things for input, right, into like kind of her critical thinking, and that's pretty remarkable.
Tom, that's very, very nice and so complimentary. I think my journey to in Paramount is not anything close to what it is or what it was without Tom's guidance. And so like I want to talk about a little bit of my journey and how I sort of came to be where I was at Paramount. And so Tom, I started a few years ago. I was really new into streaming. It was my first, like my only experience in streaming tech was turning on my TV and watching a show. And so I had a lot of experience in tech companies, but not specifically entertainment and streaming. And so joining Paramount, which is this big behemoth of a company, I had a lot of imposter syndrome. And I think a lot of women have that sort of sense of feeling when they're starting a new role. And so one of the biggest projects I worked on early in my time in Paramount, it was another large sort of conversion project named Jupiter. I'm sure that Sarah and Tom both remember that project. And I felt like I kind of was thrown in headfirst in the deep end, and in a way that was challenging and motivating for me. But I very distinctly remember I was driving a call early on in that project with a bunch of leadership from different brands. And Tom reached out to me after that meeting and said, hey, are you okay? Like, that was a hard meeting, things like that. And sort of just like, that was the first time I was like, oh, Tom is not just listening to the information, he's paying attention to the people. And he's sort of looking for clues or cues that are not just like, is the job getting done? Is the person okay? And I think the biggest foundational thing for allyship for me when I was thinking about it is somebody that has like cares, right? Like everybody cares about the business and wants the business to be successful, but caring about the people you're working with and the people you're partnering with is so much more important. And having good relationships and building good connections with people you work with help make the company successful. And so that was like the start of Tom and I like interacting. He and I have exchanged several Slack messages that have profane words in it through frustration. And I think what I've learned is that he was a safe person for me to come to and be vulnerable with. He was a person that when I was struggling to figure out a path forward, he could be a strategy partner with me. And I would say, hey, like, I'm thinking about this. How do you think that would land? And I think as a woman in tech, especially in streaming entertainment, there's a lot of really strong male voices. There's also a lot of strong female voices, but not as many. And I think in my experience at Paramount, and what you said about like when you're talking, you're not learning, feels so true. And what I've also really appreciated in Tom's allyship is when those big personalities are really taking over the conversation and taking up so much space, Tom will come in as a really well-respected voice and like pivot the conversation. And I think he does such a great job of, and I think I don't know if it's intuitive or if it's just you thoughtfully do this, but you are so able to like without creating friction, without creating hurt feelings, is sort of transition the conversation back to sort of where I want it to go. And I think that that is a result of us collaborating really well together and trusting each other and things like that. And so all of throughout that first project I worked on, which eventually was canceled, which is fine. Tom helped me so significantly, like build relationships in engineering, build relationships with product leaders that I wasn't really interacting with, introduced me and told me to go speak with people to learn more about different sides of the business, to make me a more sharpened tool, I suppose, and to get more skills when I'm collaborating across multiple teams. And I think those doorways that Tom opened for me really like paved the way for the success I had at Paramount. I wouldn't have been able to be as successful or be as motivated in my work if it wasn't for Tom sort of, I don't know, taking me under your wing a little bit, I would say. But I think it's also important to say there's not favoritism for me. Like I've witnessed Tom do this in many different settings. In Slack, he'll be one to celebrate a lot of things. In meetings, he'll be the one to call people out and give them credit, which I think is such a huge piece of allyship, is making sure that people who are doing the really hard work that may be behind the scenes are brought to the center stage. And I think that's really, really important, especially in a sort of in a field where there are a lot of people that want to be me, center stage. It's all about and less about sort of lifting the people up with that are behind them. So yeah, I feel like I've gone on a tangent, but that's
was amazing, Michelle. Thank you so much for everything you said there. That really means a ton to me. And um, I guess I didn't quite realize just how much we really have like partnered on these things. It just kind of became part of our kind of DNA, I guess. I really like what you
Yeah.
said about like I really feel like if if you focus on, a lot of times you hear corporate culture and inclusivity, that sort of thing. And I find it to be in a lot of situations contrived. Like it's almost like virtue signaling from an office somewhere, and let's instill this into people. And I think you really are carry like that authenticity of that of uh, including everyone, like I said, validating, getting the most out of everyone, and that's organic. And I think our work together, and also Sarah here, who's here as well, like specifically at Pluto, being a global product where at one point in time, and at least in my org, I think I had people from 27 countries. Like, so you have people from all kinds of different backgrounds and experiences. Like you have to develop a universal language of communication. And I think what Michelle was highlighting there is a lot of that. And it's founded in respect. And without that, you don't have trust, you don't have any of that. And that's like what you were just saying, like, it's about caring about the people. Like these are people who you spend a lot of their time with. If you want to approach it as results and transactions and KPIs, those things are all important and you have to have that. But those are really like the output of a great um, collaboration of people. And I feel that if you miss on results, it's probably because you missed on most of those fundamental things. And so I don't know, It's it's a real blessing to like have worked with in this environment for the last several years together. And you know, go like you said, the project which was canceled, like there's a failure, right? So, but we learned from it, and we've kind of harvested a lot of our work out of it that's gonna carry forward. And you only get that by like having this mutual trust and respect for things versus, you know, we blame and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I have the most, you know, for huge respect for like I would say your courage in all in consistency. It's not like any one moment. It's like every day to continually like show up prepared, knowledgeable, inquisitive, um, all of these things. And you know, and as a man, I don't understand. Like, I think you kind of mentioned like gave some illumination there, insights into like the pressures of being a female in streaming or in general in the workforce. And as a man, I don't directly understand that. And but I know by observation and the things that you just explained that there's an expectation there, right? That you must to maintain credibility, it seems. And then, you know, so that's already a raised expectation or bar. And you know, I see this so much, not just in yourself, people like Sarah, people like others that are always coming with that. And I think to myself, selfishly, I think, do I always show up that way? Like I show up and wing it in meetings. Like there's are things that are not fair, right? And I think the mind, like that's for me provided a lot of mindfulness to understand, to try to understand the challenges, and I hope to be able to help with navigating these sorts of things. So I think next, and so I'm kind of rattling on here. I don't know if we want to talk about other things, but
Okay. I have a question here actually, and this is for you, Tom. Like, allyship requires a lot of courage and openness. Can you share a moment where stepping forward as an ally was challenging? And what did you actually learn from that situation?
um, I would say the biggest one I kind of highlighted earlier, honestly, with Michelle was during this ongoing project of, you know, with a lot of clash between many organizations. It would be very easy for me to kind of lay back into like our organization and uh, maybe think things are someone else's problems to deal with in terms of like not very respectful behavior, frankly. And that's something that like you know, could be political landmines in some cases. But it goes back to like for me, like I wasn't raised that way. Like if something's not right, you know, do what you can to correct it and get and make things right. And you know that this would be like kind of this big project we've been working on. And again, reaching out to Michelle, I guess it was multiple times. I don't know how many times we've done this over and over, I guess. And like really taking a vested interest in supporting someone. So I'm not trying to suggest there's like any like malfeasance or anything like that, to be clear, but at the same time, like it's difficult. And you know, we only know our own journey, and trying to understand someone else's journey and their goals and how you can support them. It's that I find that more rewarding than doing something for myself. Like so doing things for others, I think is the right way to be.
Yeah, and it's not easy, honestly speaking. Like, allyship, it looks like very simple, but it's not a one size fit all, or it's not a one action which is consistent required. And how do you recognize when it is time to step up or step back or simply listen? Because allyship comes into the different requirement in terms of the actions. Sometimes it's just listening, or sometimes, stepping up and saying, hey, let her finish her conversation, or supporting her what she's doing. As you rightly said, we succeed, we fail in the projects, but it's not about the success and failure, it's about people. How do you define where to step up or step back, or what action to take?
That's a great question. I think in general, like stepping in would be initiating and offering without any expectation of anything, just out of the right thing to do. I think it's not, like you said, a one-time thing, but it's kind of like Michelle laid out. Like it's an ongoing relationship, that and relationships change, and you only help the other person by putting something into it. So the stepping back would be, I think, just making sure that that line of communication, that door is always open, and being non-judgmental. Uh, and really, the listening part is, I'm telling you, it's 4 to 5 times. If you listen and you take in things, there will be those moments, and thank you for saying these things, Michelle, where it comes together and you can say, okay, I need to step back in and redirect this conversation. But you can't get there without listening and taking it all in. Um, and even the loudest voices, you have to really, there's usually going to be some good points in the loudest voices. But if you're not kind of bringing the cohesive conversation together and into something that everyone can relate to, then people are not going to feel like they can contribute. That I'm not, that's for other people to decide. So, yeah, so I mean, in general, it's initiating, listening a lot, and then at the right moments when it comes together to step in. And I think a lot of like the one-on-one things conversations can be providing feedback on, here's what I'm thinking is my next step. How do you think this will be perceived? That's a lot of things that I've encountered, and I think a lot of that is just giving constructive feedback uh, along the way to say, well, a lot of times I find people like Michelle and others, again, maybe it's part of the credibility um, expectation, will come with like really complete information, lots of drill down, that sort of thing, which is great because it's factual and data based. But the reality is, decision makers a lot of times only have so much time to make a decision and really want like the critical analysis, or TLDR, too long didn't read, kind of thing. So a lot of coaching that I have around that is that, like, let's have the underlying facts to back up what you have, cite your sources, but come with, here's my opinion, because if you're working with good leaders, they trust what you're going to present.
Excellent. It's such a beautiful story, Michelle. And my next question is for you. Like, you're a great example from right from the content viewer to, shaping the streaming media industry. You're part of, women in streaming media. What is the impact and outcome as a woman you have with the presence of ally? Like, can you share a time when an ally actions had a positive impact on your career, visibility, or sense of belonging? Because as you said, you started your journey as a viewer, right? Just from watching a television content to now, being a part of a huge family like Paramount, where services available globally for everyone.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think one example that really stands out for me, and this is another example of Tom, is we were working on this convergence project, and we had some issues on one of our platforms with getting playback to work. It was like this big technical issue, and we were in a meeting that had a lot of the senior leaders related to sort of our web platform product, things like that, engineering. We're all in this room, and the conversation, the goal of the conversation was, hey, we need to find a path forward. Like, we need to have play out on this app. It's critical. How do we get there, right? And the conversation sort of devolved into discussions from different viewpoints about why it's challenging or what we should do or things like that. And Tom, without even any prompting from me, stepped in and said, hey, I'm engineering, we'll help figure this out and we'll get back to you. And what was beautiful about that moment for me is, one, he stepped up when everybody was trying to point fingers to everybody else to sort of like take on this challenge. And two, that he was seeing that I was kind of struggling to get to a result and stepped up to help support me get a result. Now, Tom was, I think, because Tom and I have such a good relationship, and we he does value my opinion and value my perspectives here. I assume that's why he kind of stepped in and did that, but that sort of really unblocked a lot of other things. That informed leadership. We were able to inform leadership that we had a path forward. Tom put some of his best guys on it. Like, we were able to really make tangential project or traction on this sort of really hard technical thing we had to overcome. And so that piece could have, that sort of finding a way forward could have really fell flat for me. It could have, that conversation in that meeting could have ended with action items to have another call and another call. And I think that by Tom not only trusting me as like the pusher of this project, but also knowing the sort of importance of it, took this on his plate. And I think what's important to understand is that, like, this is a time when we had shorthanded teams. Everybody had more on their plate than they could possibly do. I mean, it's just, it seems like in this industry, we're trying to do a lot more with a lot less. And so it's not like Tom had all this bandwidth sitting around to step in and take on this effort for me, for the company. But that really, 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 like, solidified our track forward. And so that, I assume that made me look good. I don't know if it made me look good, but it definitely helped drive my project forward.
That
Yeah, and I think it's
isn't.
a
I
great
wanted to
example
add.
of shared responsibility. Yeah,
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 I wanted
Tom.
to add to that. I do remember that, Michelle. That was fairly recent, and it really boiled down to, uh, I'll just say it, two men talking at each other. When I'm like, I know that underneath the two of you have the quote Lego bricks to build this thing. You're just, without saying it, you're not listening. You're not listening. You're not listening to what Michelle is asking. So go do it. So, so,
Absolutely. And
yeah,
and I think what was really helpful in that moment is, Tom, you have this authority and this leadership quality that's so far beyond your title. It's just how you show up in the workplace. And I don't want to call it throwing your weight around, but when you do kind of throw your weight around, it's very impactful. And when you speak, it's very respected. And I think that as a woman, my goal is to get to that level. I want to be that voice in the room. I want to be seen as that authority. And it's only through allyship and through collaborating with people that have that sort of je ne sais quoi, for lack of a better term, is really how women can develop it and really sort of amplify their own voices.
I think that's, something I was thinking about, some of the framework of the discussion. Like, that's what I would love to see for you and many other women in streaming tech. Is, there's always the three pieces of the business. There's grow, run, and transform. And at least in my experience, like, there are so many amazing women in streaming tech in the grow and the run side of things. And we're starting to see an emergence in the transform side of things. And that is where I would say be bold. Like now that's easy for me to say as a man, to be clear, like because of a lot of the things I've observed, like there's this thing that I'll never completely understand. So I'm sure that managing and understanding how you're coming off and perception and all of that is different. So, but I think about like the next step in your career and others and people like Sarah also is, all right, I want to be bold. I want to take risks. I want to like transform this place. I want to do something like, or wherever it is in the industry, do something like super impactful. And I mean that as in like stepping up into those roles, if you will. Um, I do think there's a lot of uh, like kind of, I don't know how to put it, like managing up has been kind of the path that a lot of my perception is a lot of women probably have to take as the way these things are set up. Like, how do I manage up? That's my path. And as an ally, I would like my next step to be like focusing on like, it's not necessarily managing up. Let's face it, you have to do that to communicate what you're doing and that kind of thing and what the organization's doing. But there's also like working like we do across and focusing on the impact of on the business. And I strongly believe if you focus on the impact and the people, then the rest will work itself out. So that's something I'm going to try to challenge myself to figure out, like going forward, like how can I help with that? And I hope to be able to help you, Michelle, and Sarah, and everyone in the ecosystem.
Yeah, and before we move to the next question, I would like to ask the members who are there on call, if they have any question, please raise your hand or just unmute yourself and feel free to ask the question.
I have a question actually. I joined because I saw it was on LinkedIn and I saw that Tom was here, but I'm really pleased that you're here, Michelle, because I'm just to describe in the hierarchy, like I'm like two or three levels below Tom, I'm an engineer, so I'm kind of quiet on these calls. But Michelle has led this big project, and I earlier you were saying, and she's just very articulate and you're very eloquent, and so I'd like to ask. Earlier you mentioned imposter syndrome a little bit, and I think I struggle with that a lot. I feel like I have to know something like 120% in order to speak like somewhat confidently on it. And so oftentimes that doesn't like I don't actually get to that 120% in order to speak up. But I'm just wondering, do you have any advice or but because I've seen you talk, you've I mean, I remember this one call you were talking you talked directly to like our CTO or Vibel, and I was just like, oh my gosh, wow. And so anyway, I was just wondering like do you have any advice or any uh, uh, yeah, just words of encouragement to kind of maybe combat those thoughts or those that pop up and I'm like, oh, like I don't know if enough yet, or anything like that. Because yeah, you are very articulate and eloquent. So, just if you have any thoughts.
Thank you, Sarah. That means a lot to me. And before I answer your question, I just want to say that like my experience with you, so Sarah's like an engineering lead on one of our platforms, and she is brilliant and smart and like in a male dominated team is really like a rock star. And I was actually, so I'm glad you asked this question because I was going to say this later, but Tom is Sarah's manager's manager. And so I think it's really a testament on how Tom trains his team to also lift up the people on their team. And so Sarah, when you like the imposter syndrome piece, when I've seen you speak in meetings is not something that I ever interpret from you. So nobody can see it. I can't see it at least. In my own experience with imposter syndrome, I'll say it's like never going away. I always have some level of imposter syndrome. And I think I saw on Instagram somewhere that if you don't feel like an imposter, you're probably not trying something new or something like that. And so I think one thing that I think has really helped with managing my imposter syndrome is just trusting myself. And I have the same feeling. I need to be an expert. I need to have all of the facts. I need to be like an SME of whatever I'm going to speak on, or else I'm not going to be taken seriously. And I think that that's the bar that women have to set for themselves because of just the foundation of how we live in a patriarchy. And that's how, a lot of how our businesses are run. And so once I started to realize what I started to realize through conversations with leaders and leaders I really respect and people just that have great leadership skills is that nobody really is 120% confident on anything that they say, right? Like nobody knows it that well. I mean, that's not true. Maybe some people do, but the majority of us don't. And I think once you start to trust that what you want to say is important enough and drives it forward enough that you kind of just it's like a muscle you have to work out. You like kind of get over that fear and get over sort of that hesitation. But another piece too is I think, and this is something that Tom helped me with too, like seeing the leaders like Veeble and Tom Ryan and like all of the big senior leadership at Paramount and Pluto are also just people. Like they're also just humans, and their view of the business is such a different scope than ours. And because of that, I think our voices are important, right? Our voices are need to be heard because our perspectives are so different. And so I think the things that help me combat my imposter syndrome is like trusting myself. I know like in my heart that what I'm saying is necessary and will help get to an outcome. So trusting yourself, sort of understanding that like the people that you're speaking to are also just humans. You know, they're also probably nervous and scared and don't want to come off mute or do whatever, you know, like that feeling is very similar. And then the last thing that I learned, especially on like virtual calls, is sometimes if I'm really nervous and I have to present, I just pin my own video. So I'm just talking to myself, if I'm honest. And then it's just like a conversation with me. And I'm like, I love me. So I'm gonna, be the best critic of myself. Does that make sense? Is
Yeah,
that
no,
helpful?
absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's
Yeah,
funny.
and to
So I like that.
yeah,
I like that tip. I find
yeah.
myself in those moments too. If you in my desk, maybe I just look down because I can't process all of the video. So that's
Mm,
a great tip.
totally. I learned it from Tim Adams on the innovation team at
Oh,
Paramount. So he's
very
great.
cool.
Yeah, and I recently came across this one quote. It's a full-time job believing in yourself, no days are off. So just believe in yourself and you'll be fine. This is such a great tip and conversation. It's clearly that, it's a shared responsibility, and you need a situational awareness, and you need a courage also to ask for help, like Michelle, the way you're asking and sharing and seeking the help from your manager. It's such an incredible story. Uh, in terms of if you give one piece of advice to someone who is starting allyship journey, and I want to, kind of hear this from Tom as well as from Michelle, that what it would be as an ally or as a woman in streaming media or tech space. It it's for you personally, what's the next step you see in your own journey or someone who wants to start the journey?
Yeah, this is a great question. So I think what I talked about earlier is I want to take on a bigger role in helping women in streaming media be have transformative impact on the industry. And I think it's all of the skills and talent and frankly values are there. Michelle and Sarah are great examples of that. It's how can I help kind of create like a force multiplier, like doing mentoring or informal mentoring or just working together. There's only so much scale that you can get out of that. So how can I help with creating a new transformative kind of mindset that really focuses on impact? If that's, a lot of like moving up into like a executive role is you're no longer just like leading people who are individual contributors or manage the work. You're leading leaders, and that's something that I need to really think about quite a bit. Okay, I need to basically teach other leaders how to do these sorts of things. And to be clear, I haven't figured anything out, and I'm just here to be a supportive. But how can I help other leaders, whether it's in Paramount or in general, make this as part of like their goal really in their career? Because that's one thing I think about at the end. Like, it's what did you do for others, and can we all have that kind of mindset versus what's good for me? And that requires like not a transactional view of things. And right now in the industry, in streaming, with a ton of consolidation of companies, Paramount included, with Skydance, there's a real need, in the industry to, I think, how are we going to disrupt ourselves? How are we going to take things to the next level? So now is the time to be bold. Like, there are times not to be bold. I think when things are starting to come together and get squeezed, now's the time to reinvent things. And I think there's a huge opportunity for women in streaming media to do that sort of thing, a transformative, innovative time, now and into 2026 and beyond. Artificial intelligence obviously is a huge area of investment. Maybe I'm just throwing that out there as an opportunity. It's something that is people are very curious about and see as a potential transformative tool or technology. And I think I want to try to help like many women in streaming media to don't wait for those decisions to be made of how things are going to work. Go and do what people like Michelle do. Find the gaps, ask the questions, drive for solutions, and that's what's going to provide for everyone going forward. It is a very tough time in our industry, and now's the time to be, if you want to be a leader and emerge, now's the time to be bold.
Yeah, 100%, Tom. I totally agree. And I think my own personal ethos has been like, be proactive, right? Like, be proactive to sharpen your tool the best you can, right? Like, as a program manager, I need to understand technology. I need to understand design. I need to understand product. I need to be able to speak with all these groups effectively. And so that to get there, I was really proactive in learning about, streaming and all of that stuff. And I think I was really fortunate that Tom proactively reached out to me. But I think for my piece of advice that I would give for women in streaming media, or anybody that's underrepresented and feels like they have to sort of do extra to climb, would be proactive, would be to kind of take some time, sit with yourself and think, hey, how can I be a disruptor? How can I be bold? What do I want my career to look like? What do I want my time in this position to look like? And then start taking steps, right? Like, if it's, I need to learn better about the design process so I can implement features better, grab time with somebody in design, make connections, don't be afraid to reach out. And I think that as women, sometimes it can be a little intimidating, especially to reach out to somebody with a VP title or whatever. And so you don't have to reach out 7 levels above you. You can reach out to your peers. You can reach out to somebody who has more time. Like, an ally doesn't have to be a man, and it can just be anybody that you can get support or knowledge or anything from. And so start small, start where you feel safe. And the more you do it, the more you feel confident to branch out. And then the last piece I'll say is that it takes a level of vulnerability too, a level of vulnerability to say, I know I'm deficient here, or I need to be better here, or I want to be better here. And really being clear with whoever you're trying to connect with. Like, I respect you. I think that you can really help me learn X, Y, and Z. Can we have some time? Things like that. And it's like leaving ego at the door is kind of the most critical piece to an allyship relationship, at least from my perspective.
Such a great answer. And there is so much to learn from your story. My last question to Tom, it's a very tricky and important question. And I love to ask this question to the leaders because it's not easy. Allyship can be really tricky to measure. Like there is no metrics. We all the time talk about the data metrics in streaming media space, but unfortunately for allyship, there is no measure. And it's different meaning for the person to person or organization to organization. What's that one piece of advice for leaders on staying accountable as allies in their daily actions?
Wow, this is a very deep question and a very tricky, as you've said. I would say, it's always like checking your moral compass and thinking deeply. Um, it's one thing to get results somewhere, but are you truly valued for what you have done in your relationships? So I think about a lot of things in my personal life versus my professional life, and like, have I really invested enough in the relationships? What are you really? Because then here's the thing: if you haven't really supported people that well, what are you left with? You're just left with whatever was accomplished, and that's fleeting. And a great example, and I don't know if we just mentioned, Michelle's moving on to another great opportunity in her career. I know for sure, like our relationship will continue. Will continue, and I want to continue to support her. And that is really, I think, the measure is, do you have continuing relationships that are meaningful and supportive, or do you just have transactional things to point to? On, if you want to look at it for your LinkedIn or your resume, I did this, I did that, but what did you do that was impactful with people? Who do you count in your camp? Like that is more important than how much money did something get delivered on or something like that. And I know it's hard right now in this world to think that way, but it is all just people in the end. There's nothing else.
I totally agree with you. And it's basically um, what we earn is people, not the business, not the experience. It's the people and how we build the relationship. Really, really nicely said. What an amazing conversation. Let me quickly check if anyone has any questions on the call. Okay. So incredible conversation and huge thanks to Tom and Michelle
Oh,
and
Dipali,
Sarah also.
Dipali, I
Sorry.
think Anuja? Sorry,
Yeah,
did I say that right?
Yeah,
yeah,
please go ahead. My
not so
screen
much.
was not.
Sorry,
Yeah.
not so much a question, but I really enjoyed listening to, Michelle, your sort of story and how you sort of develop your confidence and your ability. I mean, we all work in a very sort of male-dominated industry. I probably, like, I'm the only woman in meetings. I sort of stopped noticing that now, but it can be quite intimidating when you start off in a new role, getting your voice heard. So, and I think support comes from lots of different avenues, like you said, not just your manager. I think I rely on my peers quite a lot to sort of find that guidance or find that support and build up your confidence, right? So that you have a voice that can be heard.
Thank you for sharing that.
So yeah, I really enjoyed listening to your journey.
Thank you.
Yeah, and what I liked actually about this conversation is both of you shared the story of failure also. I know that Levent, who is on the call, he mentioned that why not to share the stories of the failure also? Like you don't need to always talk about the success only, because success might be the one milestone, but there are a lot of failures behind it to learn with the experience. And I love that, how you embrace that failure and took it as a learning from your day-to-day conversations. So incredible conversation, and huge thanks to Tom and Michelle for sharing your allyship journey with us. Truly inspiring, great example of how the allyship in action can transform women in streaming media's life. Your feedback means a lot to us. So please take a minute and tell us what you like, where we can improve. Quick announcement about where we will be next. We will be at London's DPP Leaders Briefing next month. And DPP Leaders Briefing is the flagship conference which happens in London, where the senior executives from more than 30 major media organizations from USA and Europe share their executive exclusive intelligence about what their strategies and priorities for the next year ahead. So great opportunity to attend that conference. We will be there, and of course, we would love to meet you there as well. And of course, a big thank you to the members and everyone who joined the call today. For more conversation and collaboration, contact Tom and Michelle on LinkedIn. You can also reach out to us at any time at allyship@womeninstreamingmedia.org. And we will be back next month again with more members meetup update and another awesome ally of the month. Until then, take care and see you next time.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
Tom, and thank you, Michelle.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.